Call to order the meeting of the Lake Mills City Council for March the 15th, 2016.
I move we go back to late.
Please join us for the pledge. And would you call a roll, Misty?
Mrs. Fritsch?
Here.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Here.
Mr. Shar?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Grundon?
Here.
Mr. Knippel?
Item 3, corrections and approval of the City Council minutes for February 24th and March the 1st, 2016. Do you have a motion of acceptance?
So moved.
I'll second both.
Okay. Any discussion or corrections?
No, the-
Not, Misty, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item 4, correspondence. We'll start with Mrs. Fritsch.
Well, this time I have some. I received a letter, and I think all of you received copies of the letter I received from Carol Burrows, and she was writing in regard to Lake Mills looking into a senior center. And I want to thank Mrs. Burrows for writing the letter. She brought up a lot of really good points and so forth. One thing I want to say as a council person is that this is something we have to look at. We can't just do it haphazardly. We have to look into it. We have to decide what's best, where would be best. Is there any place in Lake Mills that could be used as one now? It's going to take some time and some research to find a good answer for this. And it might be something we want to at some point put on the agenda for us to discuss as a council. But I think her point is well taken. And I think a lot of people have mentioned it to me, and I'm sure you've heard it too in town, that they'd like a place of their own. So I will give my copy of my letter to the office for the record, and I just think it's something we need to look into. I'm not sure I can do a whole lot more than we're doing right now between the dam and the highway and the, all the other things that are going on. It's, but I think maybe we can get the ball started in looking at it. Kind of ironically, I received a phone call from a totally separate source, and the person who called me was trying to find out if the Lake Mills might be willing to be a dementia-free city, which this is a new thing that's coming out. I don't know if it's new, but it's new for me. And I think it really ties quite close with the senior center idea, but they're not identical. The person who called me has asked to meet with me sometime to talk, but I thought I'd bring it up since the other item was brought up in the letter, and a lot of cities are doing things to not only help the people who have dementia, but to provide support for the families with people that have dementia, being a resource place and so forth and so on. So I want to just mention that to everybody, that you might hear and see something. Maybe we could tie the two together in some way. So, let's see. Okay. I do want to mention that we miss Katie Otto in the Main Street program. She's recovering from a medical leave, and she will be out for a while. She won't be able to be here tonight to talk to you about the item that's also part of the Main Street program, but I think things are going good, and we hope her a speedy recovery. And I think the rest of the things that I have can come up on the items that are on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, and we do wish Katie a speedy recovery. Steve?
Same letter Diane got, and a couple questions on the Culvers project, but that was about it.
Okay. Ed?
Of course, Carol's letter CC'd, and a constituent in my ward had a street repair question and sidewalk repair. We dealt with that internally, so
Okay.
that's it.
Mike?
Just Carol's letter, and that's it.
And I too had Carol's letter. And
We did receive also an email from Anita Martin asking about videotaping a meeting on Thursday night. Has anybody responded to that? Steve, did you get to respond to that?
Yeah,
or-
we responded to it.
Okay, all right, because I
The
couldn't.
last I'd heard that Dave was going to videotape it.
Okay. I just thought we should acknowledge that we received that email. And so I received that email, maybe. I thought everybody
didn't
did.
get it.
So, oh, I'm just so special. That's it. Okay, so,
Okay, we'll close item 4 correspondence and go to item 5. Misty, would you read that for me, since my eyes are bad?
Questions and public comment. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, you are asked to hold your comments until the hearing. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you've registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided.
Okay, do I have anybody wish to address the council at this time? If not, we'll close questions and public comment, move on to item 6, city manager's report. Steve?
I think I had a bunch of things attached to the agenda for you.
You did in fact.
And the one I wanted to point out the DNR letter for the dam grant bid approval, and note that we couldn't start building until after a pre-con had been concluded and we'd had a timeline. The glacial Drumlin spur, did you notice that they ended up giving us all the money?
Yep, very good.
and what
So
was,
I'm going to
unexpected,
sign
I
that and
think,
send
wasn't
it
it?
back.
Was that, we weren't expected a full,
No, they had told us they were going to give us 17, and
we ended up getting 32.
we ended up getting 32.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that was the original request. It gives us 2 years to get the project done. I will sign this and send it back tomorrow.
Good.
now what will
This
we
ties
be,
into an environmental survey that we would have to do if we constructed certain street projects. So I may hold off until that environmental survey is done,
Sure.
okay?
and are we talking about the spur that runs,
Down to St. Paul's.
okay, that one, okay, all right.
We received 2 thank you cards, one from the Main Street program, one from the Rotary. We're going to talk about an item tonight on the agenda. I would like to expand more on the Alert Sense project during that, if I can.
Sure.
All right, so then I don't have anything else to add tonight.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Steve?
I'm just checking to make sure we're keeping you busy enough.
Yeah,
It's been a lot going on, hasn't there?
we have been talking a lot about flags, but that's kind of slid to the back. We hope to have it ready to go by April 5th. But you'd be surprised how many issues come into flags. Well, you think about the discussions we've had about the changes in the streetlights on Main Street and how that impacts the flags. And some of the laws and rules we're reading about how flags have to be illuminated as an issue. And then how we have to maintain them and the quality of our, not only our flags, but our support. So that's all an issue that we're trying to work through. It's pretty pretty extensive.
Okay, item 7, acceptance of minutes of the Public Works Board and the Planning Commission of December 22nd, 2015, the Planning Commission of November 24th, 2015, and the Joint Rock Lake Committee of January 5th, 2016, and they'll go on record. Item 8, council business miscellaneous licenses. Misty, would you read those?
We have a Class A combination liquor license application for Lake Mills Foods LLC, which is the Century Store location.
Do I have a motion of acceptance?
Moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion on that? If not, Misty, would you call the vote?
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. We also have a tavern operator's license for Carrie Witt.
And do we have a motion of acceptance?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item B is the discussion decision on the facility needs assessment and sanitary sewer impact fee report. And would you read motion 16-3-2-1, please?
City Council Motion 16-3-2-1, authorizing the city clerk to place sanitary sewer facilities need assessment and impact fee report on file. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, pursuant to the authority conferred by Wisconsin State statutes, has established certain standards and procedures for determining utility fees and charges within the corporate limits of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, and greater utility service area. And whereas Section 66.0617 of the Wisconsin statutes has requirements for establishing sanitary sewer public facilities and impact fees. And whereas a sanitary sewer public facilities needs assessment and impact fee report has been completed, which recommends impact fees. And whereas the Public Works Board has received certain documents and information regarding sanitary sewer public facilities needs assessment and impact fees for implementation over the 5-year period starting in 2016 and ending in 2020. And whereas the Public Works Board has recommended the City Council consider and approve the sanitary sewer public facilities needs assessment and impact fees report. And whereas the City Council has received certain documents and information regarding sanitary sewer public facilities needs and impact fees for implementation over the 5-year period starting in 2016 and ending in 2020. And whereas the City Council has reviewed the information submitted and has considered the information regarding the subject, be it therefore moved this 15th day of March 2016 by the City of Lake Mills Council that the Council does hereby direct staff to act according to the following conditions. 1, place a public notice in the official newspaper. 2, make the sanitary sewer public facilities needs assessment and impact fees report available to the public as required by state statute. The City Council does hereby approve said motion and authorizes the Council President to sign the motion of said approval.
Do we have a motion of adoption?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And then this was recommended by the Public Works Board. This is a new impact fee report that takes us through the year 2020. Is that right? Yeah, 2020, yeah. And just kind of updates the different rates for new development.
John's here, he can go over it if you want.
Okay, if you would.
This is John Cameron, he's the author of the report from Ellers.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'll just give a brief overview of the report. Impact fees, if you're not familiar with them, are one-time fees that are generally collected at the issuance of the building permit for the proportionate share of new, improved, or expanded upon capital facilities related to serving new development in this case, in the sewer service area. So, like I said, the sewer impact fee has been in place for a number of years. This is an update to that impact fee, and it actually goes out really through 2030. So in terms of population projections and growth projections, you're really looking kind of longer term, which is what you want to do with an impact fee study, because you're talking about long-term capital improvements in this case. So the big difference between what you have now and this study on the sewer side is that you're, with this study, establishing different impact fee zones for specific sewer improvements that are shown in the study. And it's really based off of the 2014 wastewater system needs assessment that was completed by Strand, where they looked at facilities that would be necessary kind of throughout that planning, that 2030 planning period, and then looked at, existing flows and then ultimate capacity flows that are needed as part of these long-term facilities. So that was all incorporated into the study and into the fees that you have before you. So any questions on the impact fee study report?
Staff or council?
Now, are we required to do this study
Yeah, pretty much.
by, what agency in our world is doing that?
It's the state statutes and how they regulate impact fees.
Okay,
I don't know which specific agency it would be under, but what they look at is, Lake Mills started charging impact fees in around 95, 96. And we did a study and implemented them and put them in place for certain types of infrastructure with the concept that it would keep the rates lower for existing people and they wouldn't have to pay for the new infrastructure required of the new development. When you break this report down, 90% of all the costs are still paid for by rates, even
Yeah.
in the areas that we're looking at doing this work. And there were,
Right.
what we did here was, we did a lot more detailed evaluation of where the public improvements needed to be made and why. And then so most of the city's impact fee is about $94. Then you have four other zones, and they go up incrementally. So you jump, most of the other ones are about $1,900,
Actually, a little bit less, but
a little
yeah,
bit less. And then you have one that's about 3,000.
right.
But they're based on the capital improvements that would be required to continue to provide additional service to that area. All the residents that live in that area have already paid their existing impact fees, and this wouldn't apply to them. It would be to all new construction, as he noted, so.
Sure. So again, it's a fee that's charged to new development, new construction, not for existing homes or businesses.
Yeah, and there are all kinds of little quirks in it, like in the sanitary district, they don't have any water, so if someone annexed, they do have, in that sanitary district, they did have sanitary, so they wouldn't have to pay a sanitary impact fee, but they would have to pay the water impact fee because they
Yeah.
never had water before. But, and if you were a property, even if you were in the city or in the sanitary district, if you'd never had water or sewer before, you have to pay the full impact fees.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. Misty,
We have a motion and second.
go ahead and call the vote.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you very much. Item C, discussion and decision on the dredging mill pond study. This is a task order that will be given to Strand. And this is motion 16-3-2-2. Misty, would you read that?
City Council Motion 16-3-2-2, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for engineering services for the Mill Pond dredging study. Be it moved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin as follows. Section 1, that Task Order 16-03 for engineering services for a mill pond dredging study in the City of Lake Mills with Strand and Associates, copies of which are attached here to and made a part hereof, are hereby approved. Section 2, that the city manager is authorized to execute said agreement in substantially the same form as attached and take such actions as necessary to implement such agreement. The City Council does hereby approve the Task Order 16-03 for engineering services for mill pond dredging study, engineering services agreement, and authorizes the council president to sign the motion.
And this task is for a study to see if we have stuff in the mill pond that needs to be removed, I guess, huh, Steve?
It's basically a study that looks at what the issues are in the mill pond
Okay,
and the channel associated with it, and then how to bring them back into a condition that would be considered standard. I mean, the channel and mill pond are always going to be suffering from sedimentation as a stream flows through and there's materials settling into those areas, particularly behind the dam.
well, let's go ahead and get a motion on 16-3-2-2. Have a motion of acceptance
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Okay, and discussion, again, this is for an engineering study, and this is an attempt to avoid the mill ponds from further stagnating and filling and becoming an odor nuisance.
Yes, it would, the $48,000 is to clean the channel and the main waterway in the mill pond. The if authorized $10,000 is to look at taking all the material out of the whole mill pond area and reestablishing it as a waterway like it once was. Obviously, this is a new concept that we've never looked at. It was brought up. You see what the costs are. We have not budgeted it for it this year.
Sure.
So I guess from my standpoint, it would, the concept of doing it would be good to put into the budget process and for next year. And I've asked them, and they have put in here that they would try and get the channel completed as quick as possible. And then the other part of the mill pond is probably out. I mean, we do the study, then we start applying for grants. We have to do the actual bid documents and go through the whole process. So I'm assuming, and depending on what the study finds as the cost, like we talked last time, it could range anywhere from $750,000 to $5 million to dredge the mill pond. So we would want to make sure that we fit it into the right slot. We knew exactly what we wanted to have done, and we budgeted it in the right year to keep our levy as flat as possible. So I recommend that we do this, but let's put it into the budget process and get it taken care of as soon as possible.
And I will ask Ed's expertise in this area. I know Ed's had a lot of experience in these type of things, so could you give us your perspective?
Before Ed does that, could I just ask a question that's related to what I think Ed's answer would be?
What we're talking about here is, on this one, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about the getting a DNR required study done, correct, Steve?
Yes.
And so, and that's what we faced a lot in, that Rudy referred to when I worked with the Rock River Coalition in the water, and as well as cutting weeds on Lake Ripley, is that you can't move on the open water, basically, without having an impact study and the DNR's hand involved in telling you what you can do and what you can't do. And so for the listening public, what we're looking at here is, on this task order, is to get the process started to meet the approval of the DNR in the whole situation. As Steve has already said, looking at the mill pond and the channel in general and exactly what is there or isn't there and going forward. But we can't move until we have this done, so.
So this is a change from 50 years ago, when...
Yeah, 50 years ago, we'd just gone out and dug it out.
Right, and we have some lifelong members of the community who I watch our TV program religiously on Tuesday nights, and I know that in the past, that's what it took, was you hired someone to go in and clean it out. Well, those days are
Long gone.
long gone. And if we don't do a study and show what's there and cross all our Ts and dot all our Is, we get in deep doo-doo with the DNR, right?
Yes, and we're covering liability too. I mean, we have to identify the wildlife, we have to identify the historic preservation issues, because that area probably has a lot, well, I know that it falls in the archaeological category. We have to know what the soil content is. You know, are there any chemicals that are building up in it? You know, there was some discussion about potential salt issues. So we have to go through and identify all that. We have to identify, you know, how we would do this, what our long-term best management practices are going to be. Then the DNR evaluates it. That helps us get the grants. That helps us get the permits, because we're going to have Chapter 30 permits at a minimum. And I imagine Corps of Engineer permits. And Corps of Engineer permits are going to take a minimum of 8 months once we have all the data gathered. And generally, the DNR tells us what data has to be gathered. So you're not going to do anything in the mill pond unless you complete this study.
And we're talking years.
I anticipate that probably by the end of next year, we would have a good idea of what kind of grant cycle we'd be in. And I assume that we're going to want a grant on a project of this extent. So then, also to get all the Chapter 30 permits and the design all done, and all the other features that would have to be considered during this type of construction or work. I'm anticipating 5 years.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And letting the mill pond silt in is not an option, since we do have to maintain a certain flow on Rock Creek, not only for the DNR, but also for our own sanitary water disposal.
Based on, and I'm not an expert, so I hire engineers to tell me this kind of stuff, but my anticipation is that there would be a minimum amount of flow that would meet our wastewater all the time, because the lake has to flow and it would cut a channel to the dam. But all the rest of the area, you might have just a little narrow area that's flowing, and then all the rest of the area that we're used to being open water would be silted in and become basically kind of like a swampy area where you could walk out and it'd be kind of mucky, but it would basically just be, there would be no mill pond. It would be just a channel to the dam and then the dam out.
Okay.
So if you want to maintain the feature as it is, so you can use it for a boat launch and some fishing and some other natural features, and the people who live on it have access to the lake through it, you would have to dredge it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, Misty, if you would.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item D, discussion and decision on repainting the Commons Park Santa Claus. Is this a motion? This is motion 16-3-2-3. If you would, Misty.
City Council Motion 16-3-2-3, directing the city treasurer, finance director to utilize council contingency funds to repaint Santa. Whereas the City of Lake Mills, along with Partners Main Street Program and Chamber of Commerce, help celebrate the Christmas season by placing a Santa in the Commons. And whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills desires to maintain a positive image for the season in our Central Park. And whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills has determined that the Santa figure needs paint maintenance, now be it therefore moved that the City Council of the City of Lake Mills is hereby authorize the city treasurer, finance director to pay for the materials to repaint Santa from the council contingency fund.
Your motion of acceptance?
Oh, can I just speak to it?
Let's.
Oh, the motion.
So moved.
Yeah, okay, second.
Yes, okay.
Sorry.
So go ahead. I know you've got some comments, Diane.
Yeah, it was brought to my attention by our city staff that when they took Santa down this end of the Christmas season, that they noticed that it needs some attention. And so I talked with Steve, and we're going to look for volunteers. We'll be able to find people to do it, but we are here just to let you know it needs to be done and to say that there's going to be some cost for paint. It's not a big project, but still something I needed to bring to you all.
I have just one comment on this. The Santa is city property, right? And as city property, it should be maintained properly. And as such, if it requires painting, it should be painted.
I have no problem with that. The question is that Main Street was looking at it, and they were gonna get volunteers who are actually artists, because I haven't seen anybody in the city staff that could do much more than paint a curb. So,
Well, I guess I don't have any problem with that, but, if people want to volunteer with that. But, an item like maintenance, I don't think has any place in front of the council. I think that should be just normal wear and tear. And,
Well, we don't have, as far as Santa goes, we don't have any place where we do maintenance. It's kind of a council issue, so you get to, it's like maybe $50, but you guys have to authorize the expenditure. You're like the department head in this case.
That doesn't fall to parks?
Yeah, that's what I
No, it
thought.
does not fall to parks.
That's actually the city crew that, the Public Works group that, does that.
It is owned by the city, but it's not the property of any department. It's not parks. It's not,
Maybe we should make
it's
it
the city
part-
council's.
Maybe we should make it part of one of them.
I would think so.
Well, that would take a new agenda item, but yes.
It would, but yeah, then
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to go through this every so many years.
I think,
Yeah, how many
if you
years
want to
is
do that, I would send it to the
Three,
Parks
I think.
Department, because I'm going to tell you Rob doesn't want. It's nice just to have, $30 goes through you, you guys get to determine whether you want to paint it or not. We make sure that we got some
Well,
volunteers
it needs to be
paint it.
painted, it needs to be painted.
Yeah,
That goes
and I
without
don't have
saying.
any doubt about that. There are a lot of things we run through council that maybe are minor issues, but to a certain extent, it's hard to deal with, but on the other hand, it's outside of most of our,
Okay, well, if we have volunteers or whatever, that's great.
Yeah.
Do we have any other discussion?
I have a question. Originally, we talked about this was a three-way contribution. Is it now being picked up by the city? It's a small amount, but I'm just checking on technicality here.
You mean the original cost of
Yeah,
rebuilding?
was Main Street Chamber, just like the chairs, it was Main Street, City, and Chamber, three-way?
Well, now we're back to what Rudy brought up. If it's maintenance for the city, then why are we going to,
right. For
Making
the
it
amount of
was
money,
a
I don't see
three-way.
the value. When we originally started talking about these issues, there were a group of issues that went together. One was the chairs, one was the event bulletin
Well, my
board.
question was just for clarification purposes, because the small amount for the paint,
I'm-
we can just
I
put it in our
didn't
budget.
see, the only thing I saw Main Street contributing on this was volunteers.
Okay.
and, if that's important, we can do that. That's not an issue for anybody. Chamber is, but it was originally thought it would go three ways, but I tend to agree with Rudy, too. I think it is a maintenance project if we own Santa, But I don't care, just as long as we get the approval to buy the paint. That's, however you want to do it is fine.
The motion is not a three-way split. It's just.
Okay, I was just clarification, ready for the vote.
Go ahead and vote.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Santa gets a new coat of paint.
We get to see if the artist wants to change his look again this time.
Probably not.
I'm not going there.
Quick, move us to the next one, Mr. President.
Okay, we're going to item E, discussion decision on contributions towards the cost of construction of an event in the common council. This is motion 16-3-2-4. And, I don't know, council, this has got some underlying questions. Maybe I should ask before we,
Could we do the motion and then talk about it?
well,
That would be more appropriate for Robert's
I know,
Rules of Order.
I agree with that, but there's some other issues that come into play, and that includes the signage issue that may have to go through the zoning commission, or not zoning, but building inspector.
Yeah, customarily, if we get a motion in a second, then we can have a discussion and talk about all these
Okay,
items.
okay, Diane, I bow to your wishes and ask for a motion for 16-3-2-4.
Well, I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Pass it.
I'll second it.
Okay, so now let's go ahead with the discussion, and I'd like to readdress that, because I think we're getting in, huh?
Did she have to read this?
Yeah,
we ever
you
read
gotta read it.
Just so people know what exactly it
Come
is.
on, Misty.
City Council Motion 16-3-2-4, directing the city treasurer, finance director to utilize council contingency funds to construct a community bulletin board. Whereas the City of Lake Mills, along with partners, Main Street Program, and Chamber of Commerce, have an interest in promoting the events in Lake Mills. And whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills currently maintains a display pole in the Commons. And whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills has determined that an events bulletin board should be constructed for placement on the display pole. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills will pay a share of the cost of the bulletin board with its partners. Now be it therefore moved that the City Council of the City of Lake Mills does hereby authorize the City Treasurer, Finance Director to pay for a share of the materials to construct an events bulletin board from the Council Contingency Fund.
Okay, now I'm gonna ask my question. Do we need to get approval from the building inspector and
We may need to. I think the building inspector at least has to take a look at it to see if it fits the definition of a sign under a sign ordinance,
Okay.
and to see if we need to have a permit. But in order for him to know that, we actually have to know exactly what it's going to look like, the details of it, how is it going to change from year to year in terms of our dates going to be on it, and how is that going to happen? So it might be best for clarification purposes to get an application for being able to put that in the park. Then he could review it to make sure that it doesn't need any permits, and then the council would have a better idea of how much it would cost. And just as a side note, the motion talks about paying a share, but is it a equal share? Is it a
Equal
third
share.
of it? So, because there's no,
Original Santa.
Three-way.
yeah, there's no guidance to the treasurer what that share would be, so the motion might need to be amended. But I would recommend that there be a formal letter or something that indicates what this thing's going to be, the size of it, the extent of it,
Positive,
and
but
what's
yeah,
going to
there's
be on
nothing
it.
in here
That would be my
that
recommendation.
describes it.
Guess, Diane, why don't you,
Right. Well, let me explain how this came about. There has been a lot of criticism, at least that I have received, that we have this pole sitting in the park with nothing on it for 3/4 of the year. And it came up at the Main Street meetings, and then people came up with the idea that, could we use it as a events board for people who come into town, they drive around the square, they say, gee, this is a nice town, and then on the board, on the Santa pole, there would be, and it will be about half as big as Santa, not as big as Santa. Santa that would be much too big. But anyway, about half as big as Santa, and it'll have, it'll be rectangular in shape, and it will also have place for moving dates in and out at the end of the year. So this thing would come down when Santa goes up. While Santa is up, we would change the dates for the following year. So when it goes back up, when Santa comes down, you would have 2017's dates on it. So it'll have, and we'll have those screwed in so somebody can't climb up and take out the sign. So we've already thought of that kind of thing. But the point is we thought this way, like it would say Okay, okay, like it'll have the fall festival, it'll have the, okay, I lost
You got
the-
Knickerbockers, you've
Yeah,
got the
okay, right,
Arts
yeah,
Festival.
I have that here, I just didn't dig it out here. But anyway, the point is we, and the idea was to make it so that when people come to town, they can know when things are here. Oh, city band would be included on it, the dates of the bands. We've had a lot of people say, I came and there was no band concert. Well, they thought it was every week, and obviously it's not. So things like that. So that's where the idea came from. And then we did mention it to the chairperson, the director of the chamber, and they said they were interested. They thought that was a good idea, too. So it would be a three-part, so it would, where it says we'll pay a one-third share, I think is what we could change that to. Main Street, the chamber, and us. And we've already got a price quote, and we assumed the whole thing would be under $1,000. So it'd be looking like about $300, $400 per part. And that's just how it, that's how it's looking like.
If I could throw in my 2 cents worth,
Oh, and the farmer's
in-
market's going to be on it,
in
too.
favor of what's going on, and I talked to Katie about it, because we do have events on the back of the kiosk, but you got to be behind the kiosk to see, in the park, to see what the events are, and probably very few actually go there, but, so, why do we need this? And she had a good explanation, Katie did, of, exactly what you've already said, so I won't go over that, but, my concern is, and we had it when we talked about the 2 poles on Main Street where Santa used to be, and we talked about, you're saying it's going to be under $1,000, and that all sounds good, and I'm all for that, until all of a sudden we get blindsided like we did before with the Santa, and it was, well, it's going to cost between $1,000 and $2,000 to have Strands Engineering do a safety study on it, so the pole won't snap and break if the wind's blowing on it, and that was very irritating, still is to me, but how do we go about that, Steve, that we wouldn't have to spend an additional $1,000 to $2,000 to pay the engineer to say it's safe to put up? Again, you'd have to have the size, the dimension, the weight, and what the construction of the material was. But if we're going to do this, I would like to see it be done in such a way that we could spend $1,000, let's say, and build the item, place it on the pole, and not have to have this engineering study done for it. Which is probably an impossibility, but I want to throw that one at you.
Everything has to be structurally determined.
Well, and also James Topol, who's on staff, is the one who did the Santa thing, and he did all the metal things. He is doing this as well for us.
So the key here is the pole is designed to handle Santa, so if this is a smaller,
Much lighter than Santa.
yeah, so it's not, and it doesn't have as much area, so it's not as big of a wind catch. Same with the design. He's designing it on the same concept, so he would build it. We would have to have someone look at it and make a determination of, yes, it was safe, and then we could hang it. But it's probably going to be a lot easier than the original one.
Just from a liability question, is the individual who's going to be constructing it doing it as a private individual, or is he doing it as a city employee?
He's doing it as a city employee.
So actually, the city's doing the constructing.
Yes, and it'd be done at the city building. And it's already been looked at by city staff, so, to see if it was feasible to do it. And that they looked at we went over to see Santa and so forth, and then we looked at that and said, okay, well, we could do it this way and use the same support system that Santa uses will be the support system that this would use.
The building inspector will still require an engineer to sign off on it. Correct.
And I agree with the idea of having it. I really like the idea, but there's a few things that we really need to take into consideration before we even move forward. Who's going to own it? Who's going to maintain it? What's the process of changing dates if dates of certain items change because of rainouts, whatever? How do we, if a business or maybe the Optimist Club comes up and says, we want to add an event on there. What's the process to add events? Because if we add it for one, others are going to come, then before
the
you
way-
know it, the sign's longer than the pole.
The way it's been structured now, it is a Main Street project. So all of that would go through Main Street, and Main Street is the group that's defining what goes on it and what doesn't.
Right, but who goes up and makes those changes?
Well, the Main Street group, yeah.
Well,
that's-
no, they're going to get a ladder out and go up and make a change on it?
No,
if
there
it-
won't be any changes in the middle of the year.
There might be. That's what I'm talking about. Maybe a
Well,
band
then-
concert was postponed, and now it's going to
No,
be
we
next
won't do a
weekend.
change for that. That would not be changed. It's only going to be the set dates. It's not, no, we're
Yeah,
not
I
doing
know,
that.
I know.
I mean, there just isn't, it's like when you have a rain date for a baseball game. Well, they don't go and run and change all the bulletins that have been on, you do that word of mouth kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll work good like that until the first time we encounter it, and then someone will want it changed.
Well,
And then it'll come before us. So it's just things that I'd like us to think about before we,
It's not a bad question, however, I just don't see how you could change it. I mean, like, for instance, for farmer's market, we're going to have on their farmer's market Wednesdays and the time, but, on that weekend of the Town and Country Days, there isn't as much of a farmer's market, but we're not going to say, except on the week of, because there is a small farmer's market that time, but, hopefully nobody will come just for that day and say, "Oh, there wasn't a farmer's market that day." Well, I'm sorry, but, you're right, you hit the one,
Well, I
There's-
have to support Mike on this in the sense, I'm with Mike, totally for it, but I think that we need to have a better constructed proposal in front of the council before we make a decision on it.
well, then, would it be appropriate then to table this until we get more information? And the other, I'm going back to the signage. The city has been pushing pretty stringent sign laws. Does this fall under that? I don't know. have
And I
no
would
idea.
agree with
I
you
have
there,
no
Rudy, that
idea.
it needs to fall within the city's signage regulations. Can't be above and beyond.
And I would also like to know exactly what it's gonna cost, so we can give the treasurer
We did get a quote from James Topol, who would be doing it.
But that's only part of the cost, because now you've got, and that's my concern. I'm for it, all for it, Diane, but the engineering cost could be more than the construction costs. And that's what we were running into in the past. We've run into that.
Steve, what engineering costs is he talking about?
When the building inspector authorizes it to go up, he's going to want a structural engineer to say that it's built to withstand the conditions that it's going to be put under. So when James constructs it, if he constructs it like Santa, it should be fine. But someone's going to have to come out and look at it
He's gotta
and
sign off
stamp it and say, stamp the permit that goes to the building inspector, yeah, this meets the state requirements for structural integrity.
And does it cost money to get somebody
Well,
to
it
say
costs,
that?
yeah, it costs some money to have the engineer
we
come
know how
out and do
much?
it. In this case, since he's not doing the full design, he's just looking at it and signing off on it. I can't tell you, but it will be about as much as the construction would be.
Really?
Because-
Okay.
Well, he's putting everything he has on that design. So he's gonna look at it, and when he stamps it, he's saying this is structurally, so his insurance, everything he has goes behind it, his company's, so it's not like he's just gonna walk up, he's got a lot invested in making that statement. That statement alone is a
Is this
huge,
somebody we hire from outside?
yes. You have to have a structural engineer do it, so
Okay. We did not discuss at all structural engineers. I did not. Nobody mentioned that to me at all in the discussion with the city staff and so forth. So that's completely new. Why don't I just take that back to our Main Street meeting, which is on Thursday morning? And What I do think is, I think we are looking at moving it a year in advance then, till next year, because we would have to get at it pretty quick to get it up for this year. So I would think, don't look for it in 2016.
So should we,
I still think it would be a good idea to continue to move it through because, you know, a lot of the questions that need to be answered
Right.
would be good to get done now so that we can have it ready to go, and then we can have it constructed and ready to go. As soon as Santa comes down, it can go up. Because that's right away.
Unless the cost is prohibitive to Main Street and the Chamber and us, I mean, then I guess we just don't do it.
Steve, this is calling for a cost, is it not? And we don't know what the cost is. We're supposed to approve a cost. I mean, we can, I'm more than willing to approve the whole concept, but that's not what the motion states.
Well, the concept is that if it goes forward, there's going to be some cost associated with it, and you're agreeing to cover a share of the cost with the groups, whatever that is.
But that's a third of a blank check. I have a
Well-
problem with that.
You're looking at $1,000 for the sign, and I don't see the engineer being a blank check either. I mean, that's not that great. You're not asking him to do the full structural design.
so what's staff's recommendation at this point?
Why, I would like to work on a tighter proposal, and some policies related to it. I know that when we talked about it at the Main Street meeting, you know, we discussed that you can't have any private business names on it. And so we, you know, the concept of doing the sign is a good idea, but we need to move forward and tighten up some issues related to some policies related to it, and probably, you know, what it would cost to have the structural engineer sign off on it. We might even be able to reduce the overall cost, because if James is billing it to the standard of the Santa, that's pretty heavy. The sign isn't anywhere near that structurally.
So why can't all that be done by staff and then brought back to the council for the approval? So it's temporary tabled till you have all that tighter proposal in front of the council.
Well, I guess it was a Main Street Chamber proposal, and so I was kind of seeing to where they took it.
And also to see what we want to do, because, you know,
Right, so at this
there's
point.
nothing that says the city has to go in on this. It's, you know, and we can't do it if the city doesn't, so.
I'm feeling pretty much unanimous support for this project, but
Another,
needs to be some more work done.
Well, and also, as you brought up, we haven't had it looked at for signage at all. We didn't even think of that.
another thing you'll want to think about is who owns it. If the Chamber and Main Street want to donate towards the construction of it, the city would still have to be putting it up, taking it down. Somebody needs to have ownership of it, and it would seem to make sense that it would be the city, so they could dedicate it to the city, they could donate it, you know, their share of it, but one entity has to own it, and since the city owns the park, it would seem to be, it should be the city.
Okay.
Well, this is the same as Santa. And I wouldn't mind, I'd like to tighten it up, but I'd also like to see at some point, what's the concept of what it looks like even?
Well, we didn't have the concept because we felt we had to find out whether there was going to be a sign.
Okay.
And I have a concept, but I'm not going to show it to you what I have, because I'm not the person making the sign.
Okay.
So, you know, that would be really not a good idea to say, here, this is what it's going to look like, and then it turns out looking like
Totally
something
different.
totally different. So, yes, we can bring a concept to you when we get the next phase here.
So should we table this?
I don't know, so you know,
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Table it with the instructions to bring back a more detailed, I'm assuming that we would have to work closer with Main Street and Chamber to kind of hammer out exactly where we're headed and what we're looking for. And then, once they give me that, I can start knocking out the numbers and run it past the building inspector and you know, get
and the signage.
And it's
That's
not a
what you
lost
mean.
cause tonight, Diane, because you've gained the Chamber and Main Street watching this will have gained that the council is in support of it, that they think it's a good idea, but it's just that it needs to have the details taken care of.
Right, what I'm saying, though, is it's, and I'm not upset at all about this, but I'm just saying, by doing what we're doing, I think we're delaying it probably a year, because there's no way we're going to be able to do what we have to do and then bring it back and so forth, because it's already March, we got April, May, Town and Country Days is going to be on it, so we need, we were looking at, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So it may be not till after Santa next year that it would go up, is what I'm saying. And that's okay. I think everything that was brought up here is valid. We didn't think of I didn't even know about the engineering piece, so that, I couldn't tell them, I didn't even think of that, so. So let's just take it back to Main Street on the meeting on Thursday morning and share what we did tonight. And we'll put it back on the agenda when
Well, we have a motion and a second, so we have to table it.
that's fine.
Okay, so.
What I'm saying is, then
Yeah,
we can
yeah,
take it off the
exactly.
table at some later date,
Sure.
and depending on how it looks, I don't want people to say, well, they didn't put up the sign now that we've talked about it,
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I don't know when the sign will go up, if it'll be this year or next year.
Okay.
When it comes back to the council, even if you table it tonight,
Have to be amended.
I guess that the motion won't come in the exact same form because there'll be more detail so that nobody's disappointed that, how come they didn't bring back the exact same motion that was tabled? I suspect it'll be tabled, won't come back, and a new motion will be presented
Okay,
that
well,
has those
what's
details.
a better way to go if we don't table?
You don't really want to vote it down because that sends a kind of a message that you're not going to do it.
Right.
So you could table it, but just not expect that it's going
Okay,
to come back.
Okay, that's reasonable.
And one thing I want to comment is that I don't think they're going to have a meeting this month.
Yes, they are,
They are?
yeah.
I thought with Katie gone, they weren't going to have it, but okay,
Well, if there is, I didn't get the email,
okay.
so.
Okay, well-
And I saw Tom today, or talked to him, and he said, see you Thursday morning.
All right, then we're on.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to table.
I'll table. Motion
And a
to table.
second?
Well, second.
Okay, and any other discussion? So the motion is made and seconded to table this until we get more information. And what else, Steve? You needed policy, right?
Right, I think
Okay,
they're,
and more information and signage
at least a
policy.
discussion of how the sign will be used and taken care of.
Very well. Misty, if you would.
Mr. Shar?
All right,
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Abstain.
Pavich?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-0.
okay.
We'll try to bring a design along too the next time, now that we know that we've got,
A little bit of time.
Okay, discussion decision on contribution for cost of chair rentals with the Main Street program. This is in reference to the showing of, what was the name of that?
Around the corner.
Round the Corner. That we had last month, and the motion is 16-3-2-5. This is for chair rental. Misty, if you'd read that, please.
City Council Motion 16-3-2-5, directing the city treasurer, finance director to make a share of the chair rental on behalf of the city council. Whereas the Main Street Program and Chamber of Commerce, which serves Lake Mills area, has requested that the city of Lake Mills consider sharing the cost of the chair rental for the Around the Corner show premiere. And whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills desires to assist the Main Street Program and Chamber of Commerce with the related costs. And whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills desires to support the organizations that promote the City of Lake Mills. Now be it therefore moved that the City Council of the City of Lake Mills is hereby authorized the city treasurer, finance director to pay $119.86 from the contingency fund for a share of the chair rental.
Motion to approve.
And a second,
I'll
please.
second.
Discussion? What was the cost?
$119.86 would be the city's portion.
That comes out of the contingency fund? Any discussion? Call a vote, please.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item G, discussion decision on Alert Sense invoice contingency funds, and this is motion 16-3-2-6. If you'd read that, Misty?
City Council Motion 16-3-2-6, authorizing the finance director to pay emergency alert flyer invoice using city council contingency funds. Be it moved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin as follows. Section 1, that the 2016 adopted capital budget includes $2,900 for the purchase of the Alert Sense Emergency Notification Program. Section 2, that this budget amount did not include the cost to notify the public of the implementation of the Alert Sense Emergency Notification Program. Section 3, that the cost for the flyers to notify the public will be divided between Police Department, Fire Department, Electric Utility, Water Utility, Wastewater Utility, and City Council Contingency Fund. The City Council does hereby approve this use of the City Council Contingency Funds and authorizes the Council President to sign the motion.
Do you have a motion of adoption?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Second. If you got, Steve got the.
Steve, this is yours.
Well, remember in our goals,
Yep.
we wanted to do the emergency notification to the public, and we went with two-pronged attack. One was the iPause program, which is a pure emergency notification that has to go through the county and the state. And then we went with the Alert Sense, and the Alert Sense allows us as a local organization to notify people through their telephones. So we tried to gather every telephone number we could, but now we're sending out an email, or sending out this bulletin and the bills to let people know, hey, if you're interested in getting on this notification system, please provide us with your telephone number. And then what it does is it basically locates every telephone number in a certain area. And so let's say we decided, the program gives us a map, and you can highlight a certain part of the map, like a block or two, and it'll pick all the telephone numbers in that area up, and it will send a text to them saying whatever message you want, that the city is going to have these streets blocked off for the next 2 hours for some event, or you can block off the schools, and everyone around the schools will be notified that these streets are blocked because there's an event going on at the school or whatever. And so we have a full package of emergency notifications. There's some notifications that we might send out through Alert Sense that wouldn't qualify to go out on iPause. We could send out a notice that we're going to be oil and chipping the streets in a certain location today. That wouldn't qualify as an iPause emergency notice, but it would be a nice one to send out on the Alert Sense. And so those are what we have here. So it's a full city package, and so everyone was contributing to the additional costs.
Okay.
And our
So-
cost on that's like $100, right?
Yeah, a little bit less,
And I,
$133.
Okay, it was 100.
it's not a whole lot of cost, but, was it a miss in the budget planning for this, or was it, what were our choices, or what were the choices that
There
we
was,
had that,
we bought, the budget was for buying the package.
right?
When we went through the training, and they did the process for gathering telephone numbers, we went through a whole different set of them. We anticipated that there were certain groups that were not going to be, that had not provided a telephone number, that may be interested in providing a telephone number now, if we gave them the opportunity to. So like we went through the utility bills and 911 system and all that, the white pages, the yellow pages, but there's always some telephone numbers that slip through. So the discussion internally is to try and cover everybody and give everybody an opportunity, we would send this notice out. It's also kind of a pre-notice that, hey, there's a system in place now, that if you're watching for it, the city can provide notifications. It may show up on your phone. Don't ignore it. Those types of things.
So no matter what solution we would have gone with, if there was a different one from Alert, besides Alert Sense that they went with, we would most likely have ended up with some kind of excess costs like this.
Yeah, there was, we looked at the other ones. They all have about the same process for garnering telephone numbers. But there was some discussion internally that, hey, we just aren't confident that everybody's had it gotten picked up. And so it was let's cover ourselves and give everybody an opportunity to know that, hey, if you call in and check, we'll make sure your telephone number's in there. If it's not, we'll get it in there.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Just kind of curious.
And well, it's going along with making sure that we cover every communication process that we have.
I have a question. It mentions, or somebody meant, I think you did in your memo, that it would be included in with the bill for the utility. Do you know what month, if this passes tonight, it'll go in,
It's going to be in the next bill.
which would be the April? Not-
Yes.
Not this month.
Right, it'll be April.
Okay. The reason I mention it is, a lot of people never open their utility bills because they get their utility bill taken right out of their checks. So my concern is to make sure that we let people know, now the ones watching this program, we can tell you right now that if we pass this tonight, be sure you open your April electric bill, and maybe we could put something in the paper or maybe on the website to say, open your bill, because the next thing you're going to have is, I never got that notice. Well, yes, you did. You didn't open your electric bill. A lot of people don't.
On
And-
those same lines, Diane, you just made me think, would we want it to go out now, Steve, or would we want it to go out in a couple of months, say in June, when the lake traffic in the trailer park has come back? The predominantly Illinois traffic coming north for the summer.
They all still get bills already, because the way the Public Service Commission set it up, the minimum charge they have to pay all the time.
Okay.
And so they're getting bills all the time, so that's not an issue.
They also might not open their mail, though.
Right, they might not open their mail. The issue probably that I should mention is these are already printed. We've already paid for them.
Okay.
The primary reason it's on the agenda is for the information. So if you guys refused it, we'd have to figure out how to pay it. But it was an even share across
Let's
all.
vote no, this sounds like fun.
It was a minimal cost.
And
But
and
we-
we are planning on putting it on the web?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
And I think we should also put something in the newspaper, and maybe they could put it in that little front column. Just be sure to open your electric bill, something simple.
Yeah, and we have a TV station.
Yeah, we could put something on there.
Okay.
And there was,
Hopefully the TV station's carrying it right now.
okay. I just want to mention, I think we've all kind of just pussyfooted around it, but this is an outgrowth of our problem we had when we had that boiling order for the water. And people didn't know they were supposed to boil their water, and it turned out it was fine. But this is now to keep that from ever happening again,
Very good point.
because we all felt really bad, but we didn't have a system in place. Now, this will be the system in place that your phone will give you a message that'll say, if there is a water boiling thing, it'll say there is a water boiling thing, do not drink your water if there's something. And that's just one example, but,
There were certain issues tied around it. We'd already had this in place before that boil order started, because we had already done our goals with, and that was in there. So this was an item that was already in place. That kind of keyed it, but people have to understand that timing and contacting everybody isn't going to happen. But we've taken it to a new level.
but if people don't put their number in the system, they are not going to get a phone call. So if Aunt Martha, who doesn't have computer, things and stuff, whatever, you better help Aunt Martha get her number in this so she finds out. In other words, people are going to have to help each other, especially people who aren't real into technology. So,
Okay.
It does call the phone,
that's good.
but it also will send a text message.
Okay.
If you don't answer your phone, it sends a text message.
Or does it, it'll leave a message on an answering machine, Two.
Yeah, so if you have an old-style phone, you still get the information. It'll send an email or a text to your smartphone or any other cell phone you have, so.
Okay. Misty?
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Yeah, that's a very good investment in the infrastructure of the city. Let's see, we're going to item H, Resolution 16-6, voter registration location. Misty, if you would, please.
Resolution 16-6, approval of location of voter registration. Be it moved by the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin as follows, that room 103, which is directly across the lobby from the usual polling place, has been recommended by the city clerk as the registration station for the April 5th, 2016 spring election presidential preference and the November 8, 2016 general election. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council confirms the city clerk's recommended location of the registration station, room 103 of the municipal building, 200 Water Street. The City Council does hereby establish the April 5, 2016 and November 8, 2016 location of the voter registration station.
And do we have a motion of adoption?
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? I think this has always been the last few years, isn't it? Same room?
For the bigger location, or for the bigger elections, it moves to room 103. Otherwise, the smaller ones, we do it right inside
Okay.
the community center with the
Okay.
polling place.
So, any other discussion? Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
So if you haven't registered in the city, then room 103 on the first floor.
And bring identification.
And
Correct identification.
Item I is ordinance 1161, request to amend the zoning from rural development RD to planning business for LL Lake Mills LLC. There's several parcels on there. This is the first reading. Misty, is it a real long one?
No.
Oh, go ahead and go.
Ordinance 1161, amending sections 10-3-2-A official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcels 246-0713-1223-003 and 246-073-1223-034, 190 West Tyrena Park Road. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does ordain as follows. Section 1, Section 10-3-2-A, the official zoning ordinance and map of the City of Lake Mills, are hereby amended to zone the following described properties from RD Rural Development to PB Planned Business District as depicted in the attached map, to wit, parcels 246-0713-1223-003 and 246-0713-1223-034, 190 West Tyrena Park Road. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and publication as provided by law.
Do we have a motion of adoption?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And this is at Culver's?
Right, this is the Culver site, and this is the first reading. We do recommend that you waive the second reading and move right to the third reading, but you can't technically
Yeah, I'll-
start by taking a motion to approve
You
this.
asking for the third reading tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had, I mean, this was zoned planned business extraterritorial. Everything that we've done, the Northside Neighborhood Plan, the TID District, our comprehensive plan has had this as planned business. This shouldn't be an unusual situation. I mean, we've all been looking at the site and approving conditional uses for a planned business use here for at least 4 months. So I recommend that, and the building got torn down today. So I recommend that we go ahead and waive the readings and move to the third reading, but Vicki can talk to you about the process.
Yeah, in order to do that, you would have to have someone make a motion to suspend the rules, to waive the second reading and go to the third. without a motion and a second and a majority vote, it would just pass to the next reading.
Okay, well, do I have that?
Yeah, I'll make that motion to waive the second reading and move to the third, suspend the rules, and
Don't we have to waive the first reading too? Or is this it?
This is the first
This
reading.
is the first, okay.
So do I hear a second?
I'll second,
Second. Third.
third, fourth, second, or whatever.
Okay, so the vote will be for the suspender to move this to the third reading. Do we need to vote on that too, or is it just one vote, or?
You would vote on moving this to the third reading, and then if you get a majority vote on that, then technically Misty would have to read it again for the third reading
Okay.
before you could vote on it.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
let's go ahead and call the vote for that.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
All right,
Mr. Foster?
aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
okay, we're at the third reading. Misty, would you read it, please?
That seems,
Ordinance 1161, amending sections 10-3-2-A, official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcels 246071312230003 and 246071312230034, 190 West Tyrena Park Road. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does ordain as follows. Section 1, Section 10-3-2-A, the official zoning ordinance and map of the City of Lake Mills are hereby amended to zone the following described properties from RD Rural Development to PB Plan Business District as depicted in the attached map, to wit, parcels 246071312230003 and 246071312230034, 190 West Tyrone Park Road. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and publication as provided by law.
Do I have a motion of adoption
So moved.
and a second?
Second,
I just would like to comment for public knowledge that there was a public hearing on this at the Planning Commission on February 23rd, so that there, was time for people that had any comments to bring them up at that point.
Okay. Call the vote, please.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item J, Resolution 16-7, conditional use request for L&L Lake Mills LLC. This is for a monument sign taller than 8 feet on 190 West Tyrena Park Road. Misty, if you would, please.
Resolution 16-7, conditional use permit, monument sign greater than 8 feet in height, L&L Lake Mills, 190 West Tyrena Park Road. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills, pursuant to the authority conferred by the statutes of the State of Wisconsin, has established certain standards and procedures for the use of land and zoning within the corporate limits of the City of Lake Mills. And whereas the City of Lake Mills Title 10 zoning code has certain requirements for conditional uses in zoning districts. And whereas the owner of subject site described in the application incorporated herein by reference has requested that a conditional use permit be granted to allow for the construction of a monument sign on commercial property at 190 West Tyrone Park Road that exceeds 8 feet in height. And whereas the city manager, consultants, and city staff have reviewed the application documents submitted and have made recommendations concerning approval of said amendment subject. And whereas a public hearing concerning the requested conditional use permit was held by the Planning Commission on February 23rd, 2016, after due notice to solicit testimony from the public. And whereas the Planning Commission has reviewed the evidence and testimony submitted thus far and has considered all of the available factual evidence concerning the requested action and has made its recommendation and findings of fact to the City Council. Be it therefore moved this 15th day of March 2016 by the Lake Mills City Council that A, the conditional use permit for the subject site is granted with the following conditions. 1, the actual height of the monument sign is not to exceed 20 feet. 2, the conditional use shall, in all other respects, conform to the applicable regulations of the zoning district, and the proposed use and development shall comply with all additional standards imposed on it by the particular provisions of the code authorizing such use. B, the City Council is hereby authorized the council president to sign the resolution.
And do I have,
So moved.
Second,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys. Any discussion?
This one too.
This is for the Culver sign?
yeah, just to let you know, we went through this at the planning meeting, and some of the things that we took into consideration or the fact that, you know, one size doesn't always fit all. The sign at 20 feet is still gonna be shorter than the building, but it's gonna give plenty of, I guess, viewing space on that corridor. So if you come down to that intersection and you really wanna get to Culver's, you know you gotta turn right before you get to that intersection. So those are some of the things we took into consideration when we looked at this thing. And the place that they're placing the sign at is actually adjacent to a parking space. So if it was an 8-foot tall sign and somebody parked a big truck there, the sign would be totally covered, so.
Any other discussion?
Will the sign be on a pole?
It's a monument sign
It's a
still.
monument sign,
so it'll
so
be-
it's.
Oh, it's a ground
looks-
sign,
Yeah.
ground-based sign. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks, it's
So it's not like
technically,
McDonald's
it's
up
probably
in the
two poles with
air.
sheet metal wrapped around
Yeah.
it. But it looks more like a monument than a pole.
Okay.
Our ordinance doesn't allow pole signs there. It has to be a monument sign, but it can be 20 feet, it could be any height based on what the conditional use request is.
Okay.
McDonald's sign came in before our sign ordinance.
Yes.
Okay. I just answered somebody's question out in the TV public.
Right, and there's a lot of debate about,
BP.
you know, the McDonald's and Quick Trip and BP have very tall signs. They were done prior to being in the city and city zoning. And the way the codes are set up now for the city to get those out is just about impossible. So then the debate at Planning Commission really became, well, what's the overall public benefit? And it was pretty minimal either way. So it was like, okay, who cares? If this is in the best, if the owner thinks this is in his best interest, I'm good with it.
Misty?
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Item K, ordinance 1162, request to amend zoning from neighborhood business. This is a B2 to a downtown business district B1 for the Doyle Group Properties LLC. This is the first reading. Misty?
Ordinance 1162, amending sections 10-3-2-A, official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcel 246-0713-1321036-337 East Lake Street. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does ordain as follows. Section 1, Section 10-3-2-A, the official zoning ordinance and map of the City of Lake Mills are hereby amended to zone the following described property from B2, Neighborhood Business District, to B1, Downtown Business District, as depicted in the attached map, to wit, parcel 246-0713-1321036-337 East Lake Street. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and publication as provided by law.
And I have a motion of acceptance.
I'd like to make the same motion on this one to suspend the rules, waive the second reading, and move this to the third reading.
Okay, let's get a second on the first reading, and then,
I'll second.
and then, okay, now
You don't
you,
have to do
You don't
that.
have to do that.
Huh?
You didn't have to do that, but that's
Did
okay.
you?
No.
thought I did.
Oh, it's because before we
Okay,
had the
so I
first
have
one.
we have a motion to suspend the rules and go to the third reading. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Well, this is housekeeping. It's something we had to do because we changed our zoning.
It doesn't really have to do with our zoning. Mr. Doyle was in a catch-22. He wanted to build a accessory building, but he couldn't get it on he has two lots, and one is zoned, one zoning type, which is neighborhood business. The
Right.
other lot is zoned downtown business, and that one lot that he had there, you can't build an accessory building on alone. You have to have a primary use before you can have an accessory use. So he had to do a CSM to eliminate the lot line. Well, when he eliminates the lot line, then he's got two zonings. So then he has to pick one zoning and go with that. And so the debate was which one, and we felt that the downtown zoning was the appropriate one, and I think he reviewed it, went over it several times and agreed, and so that's the direction we've taken. So that's why we're at this point where we're at. To be able to build an accessory building on the site, he had to go through this.
I have a question. Mike, you said to move it forward. I presume the reason for that is so construction can get underway this spring?
Yeah, it's just to clear it up, so yeah, he has a clear path to move forward to get this thing going as
Yeah,
quickly
just
as possible.
Wondering why we're moving it to third.
And
right
it
away.
was also, it was recommended to planning commission as
Planning
well
commission
as
as
our
well, yep.
planner.
Well, and Pat's here
No, it's
to
just-
waive the rules and have anything we need to hear, or?
Pat is here,
Yeah,
so if you
that's
want
what
to
I'm
ask him.
saying, If we want,
Hi, Pat. I don't know.
Did you want
Oh,
to
I
speak
don't
to
need to. I was
council,
just
or are
point
you
of
fine?
clarification
Yeah.
on my part.
He's fine.
all right.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I think it's appropriate to move it to third reading since, again, this also was at Planning Commission. So it's not like there's been no
At a
discussion
public hearing,
Very well.
so.
at a public hearing there as
Okay.
well.
Go ahead and call the vote.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, now that was for now we need to read the third reading.
Ordinance 1162, amending sections 10-3-2-A official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcel 2460713, 1321-036, 337 East Lake Street. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does ordain as follows. Section 1, Section 10-3-2-A, the official zoning ordinance and map of the City of Lake Mills are hereby amended to zone the following described property from B2 Neighborhood Business District to B1 Downtown Business District as depicted in the attached map to wit, parcel 2460713, 1321-036, 337 East Lake Street. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and publication as provided by law.
And motion of adoption,
So moved.
and a second.
Second?
Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, item 9, recommendations for future agendas.
Now we're gonna go into close.
Hearing none. Item 10, we're going to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19-85, paragraph 1, subparagraphs 3, performance evaluation data of employees over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises a responsibility. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Mr. Kirkovich?
Aye.
Mr. Shar?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Grundon?
Aye.
Mrs. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
And we'll reconvene in 5 minutes or so.
I didn't throw my keys.